Hello and welcome to Odds on Premier League Match Day 23. Oh my God, already 23. And we have on Sunday Arsenal Man United as a big game this weekend. And I also want to bring up in this intro, Tom, which team is going to qualify in the top four. There is a tough fight, I guess, now between Liverpool, Man United, and Chelsea, all of them only in 2 points. Perhaps we see a new Man United in this second part of the season.
Let's not go wild. I would say the only teams I'm confident at the top four right now would be Arsenal and Man City. Everyone else, including Aston Villa, I would say are still not there yet. And so I would say it goes Chelsea, United, Liverpool, Villa, and I would still put Newcastle in this conversation as well. And it probably is going to be top five as well because of the backdoor get-out clause, the UEFA coefficient. So going to be a great battle.
Indeed, probably not for the title. It looks like it's done, not because Arsenal are not dropping points, but no one can chase them at this moment in time. So, guys, let's enjoy a new weekend in the Premier League. By the way, we have as many goalless draws as last season, and this is not good for us, or perhaps if you are betting in the under market, could be good, but not for entertaining. Let's talk about everything. Don't forget to post your tips, your comments in the video. We want to know your opinion. And now let's go on with the show. First stop in East London, West Ham, Sunderland. I don't know if there is life in East London, but at least West Ham finally won a football game, and it was the derby. Let's see if this is a push for the team. At home, they've been dreadful throughout the season, only 7 points, and Sunderland are even close to the European spots after beating Palace. They were winless in the previous 5 games. Tom, look at these odds. The bookies think this might be a draw, actually.
Yeah, it screams draw, frankly, which we'll get to. But look, in terms of West Ham, they did play really well last week. You have to give them credit for that. They played really well at Tottenham. They deserved to be winning at halftime. They deserved to win at full time, and maybe could have won more comfortably as well. They had the 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗲𝗀 disallowed goal, which was a right decision, but, slight delay of the run, and he scores that. They dominated the game, created chances, and were unlucky to only be 1-0 up at half-time. Spurs got back into it. West Ham still created really good chances and deservedly won in the end. I still think there's lots of problems there. There's so many problems. Like, he's been trying to find a team now, Nuno, for what feels like ever. And maybe this is it. But the trouble is, every time Nuno is found a team for West Ham this season, is that next game he rips it up completely and does something else. So if he plays the same 11 that started against Tottenham last week, I think there's every chance they're able to get something from this match. Summerville has come into a bit of form for the first time since moving to West Ham last summer. He's done very little since making the move to East London, so it's good from him. 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗲𝗀 had a pretty decent game last week as well, and I think having Pablo and Tati Castellanos up front has given them something they didn't have, which was people who can move, which they haven't had with Nicholas Füllkrug and Callum Wilson and Lucas Paqueta when he played false nine. So that issue seems to have been solved. There are still issues defensively. Only 1 clean sheet all season tells you that. But look, if they are going to stay up, which I do not think they will, if they are, they've got to win 3, 4, or 5 games in a row. The battle to stay up is being defined by Leeds and Forest, specifically Leeds with 1 loss in 7 or 8 games. A great win for them against Fulham last week. You have to try and keep that pace. I still think it'll be 36 points that gets you safety. West Ham are a long, long way from that. The only way to stay up is to go on a run of form. And you mentioned how bad they are at home. If their away form was coupled with perfectly average home form, they would already be safe this season. But their home form has been so poor, it's put them in this position. In terms of Sunderland, before the win over Crystal Palace last week, there was that run of draws they had been on. They haven't particularly felt a massive loss with those that went away to AFCON for the last month, but they kept on getting solid results. They weren't amazing results. A great draw against Tottenham, a great draw against Everton in the Cup before going on to win that on pens, a great draw against Man City. Last week was edging towards a draw before the Brobby late winner. And he's been a difference maker in recent weeks, Brian Brobby. He scored Lots of good goals, a variety of goals. He's the top scorer in the Premier League for Sunderland with only 4, which is not amazing, but there's players, Isidore and Mayenda and 1 or 2 others popping up with important goals across the piece. Look, they've been really solid. They don't play a particularly daring style of football. The energy remains very high. The tone is set by 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐴, Xhaka, who has got a good history of great performances in this stadium. So, look, at the minute, you couldn't bet on a West Ham win. You just could not do it. So we're not going to do that. But Sunderland, before the game against Palace last week, was draw after draw after draw after draw. West Ham have drawn recent home games against Brighton. Should have at least got a draw against Nottingham Forest. Absolutely screams it. So draw at 3.39. Absolutely take that. In terms of scores, 2 of Sunderland's last 3 games finished 1-1. Last week was close to 1-1. West Ham should have been 1-1 against Forest. It's going to be 1-1. So 1-1 at 6.5 is what I'd look at here. If you go for a winner, take Sunderland at just under double your money. That'll be about 3 by the time we get to the weekend. And if they are going to win, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 will score. So look at Sunderland, look at 𝗏𝗏𝗏, look at exactly 1 goal, but it does scream draw and it screams 1-1.
The odds shifted, actually, because before, when I was checking, Sunderland were great favorites for this game, around 2.0, and now it's almost 3. So the odds are going up and up for Sunderland. Also, our smart bet tool is going for an under 1.5 goals, so even riskier than going for a 1-all. Under 2.5 is 𝗛𝗏𝗏 tip, and Benson going for X2. Let's go to the next game. Is Burnley. Tottenham, taking consideration that we have Champions League again the following week, is the final day of the group stages, and also Europa League. So perhaps the European teams are keeping an eye on Europe, especially, I'm telling you this because Tottenham are good in Europe and rubbish in the Premier League, as they were last season. We were surprised by them beating Borussia Dortmund in the middle of the week after that pitiful performance against West Ham. Winless in the last 4 in the Premier League. It's also true that they've been slightly better when they are traveling, and they are traveling to Burnley. So they are favorites according to the bookies, Tom, but it's so difficult to trust this Tottenham, right?
It's very difficult to trust Tottenham. Yeah, that's the perfect way to phrase it, because they're actually very good away from home. And if it wasn't for the home record, if you look at their Champions League position and you look at the fact that the second best team away from home in the Premier League this season, only Arsenal picked up more points than them, everything would be rosy. The trouble is they cannot win almost gimme home games against the likes of Wolves and West Ham and Fulham and 1 or 2 others this season, when they played Fulham, at least at that moment. So that's the big issue. But away from home, they've been very, very solid. And this Burnley team, I've been really impressed by Burnley in lots of ways this season, as we have discussed. The trouble is, say it with me, lack of quality. They have not got a Premier League quality squad. This is a really, really good Championship team. The gulf, though, is massive. They have not brought quality players in terms of battling for the Premier League, but every game is tight. They do not get thrashed. Scott Parker is not tactically outthought by anybody, and this team have not been outfought by anybody. The issue is star players turn up at the vital moment. They give away soft chances, and they are punished for them immediately. I did a Fulham game a few weeks ago where the game was particularly even, but Fulham scored a couple of good goals and 1 soft goal, and that was the end of it. First goal in the game is often so crucial for Burnley. And look, last week, a really creditable point at Anfield, no doubt about it. But really, Liverpool should have won that 3, maybe 4-0, which was basically our bet. They missed a penalty. They had, I think, 1 disallowed, certainly other chances, and Burnley made them pay. It was a brilliant goal from Marcus Edwards. He deserved that for the effort and endeavour he put in, but Burnley should have lost that game. I think that there was a decent balance to this team now. They've done a Leeds and gone to this sort of 3-4-3, 3-5-2 formation. I think they're getting more out of Anthony and Edwards than they were in the previous setup. They pushed Kyle Walker slightly further forward, which gets him out of the back 3, where he has looked pretty ropey this season doing defensive actions, but he still has the experience to do like offensive actions, which makes a difference. So look, they're a decent team, Burnley. The trouble is they are just not getting over the line in games, and across the season, just 2 home wins and 6 home defeats tells you that. I mentioned Spurs' form already. Away from home, it tends to be very good, and they're set up perfectly for away games. They will have a solid centre-half pairing. They will have a solid midfield pairing, and they will sprinkle a bunch of offensive players around in the front four and hope one of them can do some magic. And in recent times, Simons has looked better. Teller's looked better. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵 needs to do a bit more. I wonder if 𝗵𝗵𝗄 gets a start, considering he came off the bench last week and made a big difference. But with Gallagher and Gray in midfield, they have a very Thomas Frank midfield, and they will, I think, be able to win this game. So take the Spurs win on form alone at 2.1. Struggling right now to see Burnley goal scorers in this game. It screams 1-0 Tottenham, but cover your backside here and do Spurs to win 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0. That comes in at 3.5. 1-0 or 2-0 most likely. Don't see Burnley scoring on the Spurs defence. Under 2.5 and a Spurs win. A really generous 4.33.
I'm surprised that Thomas Frank is still there. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵 is telling us, well, Postecoglou finished last season on the bench. So who knows? Tottenham will win this. Tottenham to win 2-0. So finally, we have some people believing in this Tottenham that might finish in the top 8 in the Champions League, surprisingly. Then we have Fulham, Brighton, both teams in the middle of the table, but close to the Champions League or to the European spots. Fulham lost to Leeds after a great run of 6 unbeaten games, 4 wins and 2 draws. Brighton drew. You mentioned that game screamed draw, and it was a 1-1 against Bournemouth after their great week in Manchester. How do you see this one? Another one that could scream draw indeed.
Very even. It's going to be very, very even. I am going to pick a winner in this one, but draw will be my second and third bets here. Absolutely. Look, I think that Fulham have done this thing this season where we thought they might be in some trouble. And they did this last season as well under Marco Silva. We thought they might be in trouble. And when that happens, they find a way to put a run of wins together, a run of results. Before the loss against Fulham, against Leeds last week for Fulham, it was 3 unbeaten, 1 victory, 2 draws. They are really good at grinding out results. I think that 𝐿𝐵𝗵𝗄 coming back from AFCON is an interesting question now. Does he go into a back 3 with 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝗄 and Anderson, or do they keep 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝗄 and leave 𝗵𝗄𝗄 on the bench? Interesting question, for the sickos, I guess. I think it's quite interesting. Don't know if everyone will, but I do. In central midfield, I think that they have been lacking a little bit recently. Sander Berge and Harrison Reed. Is that strong enough to consistently play in the Premier League, or Kearney comes in to replace them? I think 𝗿𝗏𝗏 coming back solves that issue. I see him going back into the 8. Playing alongside Berge, which gave them creativity earlier in the season. And in Harry Wilson, they have one of the best players in the Premier League this season. So, at home, the form has been good. In recent times, the form has been good. And I think Fulham will go into this game understandably favourites, having won around half of their Premier League games at home this season. In terms of Brighton, similar sort of story in that both teams are solid and unspectacular. Win, draw, win, draw, win, draw is the run that Brighton currently find themselves on. They don't take many risks. They don't have enough star power up front, enough firepower up front to be particularly damaging in games. And we saw that against Bournemouth. We saw it against Man City to a degree. We saw it certainly in the 2 draws against West Ham as well. That if there was let's say Haaland for argument's sake, but look, someone in that mould who could finish chances for Brighton, who could do something different up front for Brighton, they would be in Champions League contention. They would be in European contention. But I think Rutter and Welbeck and anyone else they've played up front this season, they've had their moments, but they simply aren't good enough to do it consistently. And they score magic goals or bundled in late goals to get themselves something from it. So some smart investment in Brighton this summer could see them be challengers. The trouble is they don't do smart investment in that way. What they do is sell and buy, and are happy to stay 10th forever. And that's kind of where they're going to finish again this season. So 2 very, very even teams who, if they can't win, they do draw. They are both risk averse. So I would just pick for the Fulham win at 2.63 because of the 6 home wins this season. And they have found ways to see off teams like this at home this season. But absolutely do not discount the draw here with both teams scoring. A 0-0 or 1-1 scoreline together is a very, very generous 4.5. Don't see many goals here, certainly under 3.5 across the piece. If you go for the Fulham win, you can get some good money on winning by exactly 1 goal. That's 4.33. So it's going to be very tight, maybe a squeaky Fulham, but likely a draw.
Indeed, draw, or 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗄𝗏 can split them, going for the draw or for unders. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝗄𝗏 Fulham double chance, but I don't be surprised if Brighton scores. So we are we all agree this should be a draw or 2-1 or something very tight at 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐴 Cottage. Next game is Man City Wolves, perhaps the worst moment of the season for Man City, and it's not because they are not bringing Christmas presents to Pep Guardiola, but the team is falling apart. We saw it in the derby, and we saw also the worst version of this Man City in the cold Norway. They are very fragile defensively. It takes nothing to create a chance to this Man City. They make a lot of mistakes also in the middle of the park. It doesn't matter if Rodri is on the pitch, and now Haaland even is getting dry. So a lot of problems for Man City, not the money. Tom, I heard that the players are going to pay the supporters their trip to Norway. And let's see if we see another surprise with Wolves unbeaten in the last 5. Is their best run of the season for Wolves.
If you spend your time betting on the Premier League and betting on Man City to win, you'll make more money than you lose, okay? So I'm still going to stick with Man City here, even though the last 2 weeks have been quite painful for me, for my bets. I thought they would be better at Old Trafford, and they were truly horrendous against Man United last week. Tactically poor, individual players didn't turn up, and it's no exaggeration to say Man United should have won that 5-0 minimum last week. 2-0 flattered Man City, and they got away with a less embarrassing defeat than they should have got. And in the Champions League show on Monday, I went for City again. So I feel bad here. It's the third time in a week I'm going to do it, but if they can't beat Wolves, even despite Wolves' recent renaissance, then we may as well give Arsenal the title now, because it's still not a particularly good Wolves team, and City, despite their recent issues, still surely have enough to win a game like this. I do think 𝗵𝐴 coming in will make a big difference. With all due respect to 𝗷𝗵𝐿𝐴, he has struggled. On loan at Watford 3 weeks ago, now playing every game, every minute, more or less, for Man City instead of had to pull him out. And again, I don't want to be too down on a 20-year-old that shouldn't be there, but he was really poor against 𝗵𝗵𝗀 and really poor against Man United. And there's a baptism of fire, and then there's this for poor young 𝗵𝐿𝐴. So I think he'd be a good player and have a good career, but maybe not here, and certainly not now. So that makes a difference. I think if Matheus Nunes is well, he comes back into the team. I think if O'Reilly is fit, he comes back into the team. Then suddenly you've got a back line of Ake and Gueye and the usual fullbacks, and suddenly things look a bit more solid. I think for the good of City, hopefully Nico Gonzalez is fit, because he is significantly better than Rodri at this moment. Rodri, I thought, was woeful at Old Trafford, and I think it was just as bad against 𝗵𝗵𝗀, where he got himself sent off in a minute. We're a long way off best Rodri. Will we ever get it again? I don't know. But I think Nico Gonzalez is now the most important player in this team, and if he's fit, he has to play. And then that leaves a bunch of players up front that are not doing it right now. Beyond 𝐸menyo, who in the front line has played well for City for a few weeks. Ryan Cherky maybe, but weirdly Ryan Cherky and Reinders were both dropped against United, which I did not understand, because they are kind of the best thing about City offensively right now. So question to answer for Pep Guardiola. Luckily for him, he can answer it with unlimited money. And I do think they will win this game. In terms of Wolves, look, you've got to give them a lot of respect for what they've done in recent weeks, because things were getting beyond humiliating for Wolves. And they've done exactly the same as Leeds, gone to a 3-5-2 formation, which is working for a lot of teams right now. It's got the best out of Bueno and 𝗀𝐿𝐴, and one or two others who played quite well. We mentioned Mane previously on the show. I think offensively, the young lad has really invigorated those around him with his exuberance, which can happen when young players get dropped into the team. And it's led to some confidence to some others, like Arokadare has been pretty poor this season. I don't think he's technically particularly gifted, but he's occupying defenders, which is allowing space for other people. So it's basic stuff, but they weren't doing basic stuff. And that is to be commended. So look, Wolves are obviously going down. And I think the only challenge for them was to not get the lowest points tally ever. They will avoid that. I don't think they'll get much more than 20. They may well get 25, which would be a tremendous success considering where they were, but that won't be enough to keep them in the league. Do I think there's every chance they push City close here? Yeah, possibly. Would I bet on it? Not my money. Take the Man City win at 1.26. City conceding lots of soft goals at the moment. I think only the Newcastle game in the last 5 was a clean sheet in all competitions. So expect at least one Wolves goal here, certainly on the counter with City's ridiculous high line, but City will win it. So City win both teams to score 2.5 reasonably good. If you're looking for players, like for Reinders to score and 𝗀𝐿𝐿 to be involved, those are the two players here I'd pick out offensively for City. But beyond that, might be one to avoid because you couldn't Asian handicap this right now.
Well, they have Galatasaray the following week, a very important game to finish in the top 8 in the Champions League. Remember, last season they were knocked out in these playoffs, so it's very important. Why is not playing 𝐿𝐿𝐿? Tom?
Knee problems. He was struggling with his knee and various other problems, and I think they've been trying to move him on. So he's kind of been playing him under duress, I think is the probably best way to put it. But because everyone else has been injured, he's sort of back in the squad. But yeah, mainly injuries.
Well, this game is a poison. Conant is telling us if they don't win, give the title to Arsenal, Man City to win, and both teams to score. Someone is risking first half draw. Let's see if Guardiola makes some rotations. Now, Bournemouth, Liverpool, happy Liverpool when they are in the European competition. Great win in Marseille. Now also they can get into the top 8, very likely if they win the last game. They are playing at home against 𝗵𝗵𝗏, so very likely they are going to finish in the top 8. Is another story when they are playing in the Premier League. 4 consecutive draws, risking their Champions League spot for the following season. And Bournemouth grab a draw against Brighton, beat Tottenham. Looks like the problems they were having during Christmas are a little bit behind, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, Bournemouth in that same category as Brighton and Fulham and one or two others. Forest have got into that category recently. Leeds as well. They ain't winning games, but they stop the bleeding. And that's what West Ham have failed to do. That's what Burnley failed to do. And certainly that's what Wolves have failed to do. It's why there's a bottom 3 that are clearly worse than the rest. You have to stop the bleeding. You have to pick up points. And then eventually, inevitably, you will pick up some squeaky wins, as they did against Tottenham Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago. But they're still playing pretty risk-averse football, and they are still just doing the basics well. It's been such an even Premier League in that mid-pack this season that maybe there's not enough star power in the middle of the league. Evidently, Bournemouth had some star power in 𝐸𝐸𝐻, but they couldn't keep hold of him. He's gone to Manchester City, and they replaced him with, I think Adley seems like a fine player, and 𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀 seems like a fine player, and Evan Nielsen's good, and all of that. 𝗀𝐿𝐿𝐿, before he got injured, could do something, didn't do much this season. Tavernier as well. But anyone who gets above the acceptable line of goodness has gone. And I do think that a lot of teams are now looking for that next player that's going to be their next 70, 80 million pound sale. And currently Bournemouth don't have that person, and that has kind of cost them in the last couple of games. And I think it may well cost them going forward as well. But I think they've just about got enough points to stay above the waterline. It would take a run of 7 or 8 losses in a row for them to get dragged in now, which maybe is why teams are playing that way as well. Because if West Ham don't go on a run of wins, draws will get you there with the gap that there currently is. So, look, I think defensively they've been pretty poor this season, Bournemouth. And I think it's no great surprise why they sold their top quality defence in the summer, and they brought new players in that are good, but not as good as the players that have been sold. And I feel for Antonio Raiola in that way, and that's why he'll probably leave the club in the summer, because there's only so far you can take Bournemouth, and he's taken them there already, which is maybe a top half finish. That's about it. There's not a great deal of potential in Bournemouth beyond that in the current setup of the club. So I think that defensively they looked a bit suspect in recent weeks. I think the midfield without Tyler Adams has looked like you can get at it. And I think losing 𝐸𝐸𝐻 is critical. But look, they're very well coached, and they will compete in this game against a Liverpool team who I think the loss of Conor Bradley is quite significant. I think that he is such an important player for what Arne Slot actually wanted to do, which is have solid fullbacks, protect the centre halves, and allow everyone else to go forward. And we haven't really seen that enough from Liverpool this season in the absence of Bradley when he's been injured previously, and Frimpong is more offensive than defensive. I think Mo Salah coming back will make a big difference here. For all the furore and nonsense of Salah from the Leeds game back in December, he stays. He's not going in this window, and he comes back into a team that just needs someone who can get them over the line in tight games like Burnley last week. 𝗵𝗐𝗏 has looked fantastic in recent weeks, but he's kind of been doing it offensively on his own. We've seen nothing really offensively from McAllister this season. 𝗍𝐿𝐿𝐻 has not been scoring regularly. Conor Gakpo has struggled when he's been asked to play centre forward in the absence of 𝗍𝐿𝐿𝐻 and the long-term injury to Isak. So I think Salah comes back in here, and I'm going to say, following his good form at AFCON, I would expect Salah to come back and potentially be a difference maker in this game as well. So despite a recent run of draws for both, I would still go for the Liverpool win here at 1.95. And then I think with the poor defensive run of both teams as well, I would look for both teams to score here. Happened in every Bournemouth game for the last 5 in all competitions. In the Premier League, it's happened in 2 of the last 3 for Liverpool, if you discount the Arsenal game where they were very good defensively. So Liverpool win and over 2.5 goals is a quite generous 2.63. Then 2 players to look out for. Wirtz, anytime goal scorer, 3.75. And wouldn't you expect Mo Salah on his return to have a big impact in this game? So look for Salah anytime as well.
Okay, confident in Liverpool or in Salah. Mom Spaghetti is telling you the opposite. Tom, don't get too confident with Liverpool. Champions League form is different. Salah is finished. Liverpool win or draw for Heisenberg. Breaking Bad, there you go, with Walter White. Liverpool to win and both teams to score. I don't trust this Liverpool. Shadro is telling you. So some people also not trusting Liverpool. And check out our smart bet. Big surprise. Let's take a look. He's going for Bournemouth to win. Wow. So the AI knows things that we don't. 3.9.
They've won 1 game in 12. Why will we bet on this? I mean, it could happen, obviously, but that seems wild to me. AI, mate, get rid.
That's why we are here also to interpret the data. Well, Sunday, 4 more games. Brentford, Nottingham Forest. Forest now 5 points away from West Ham, also playing European football on Thursday. Europa League also the following week. Good point against Arsenal after beating West Ham. But now it's going to be more difficult, as we can check in the odds, because Brentford are favorites. They lost to Chelsea, playing a good game, 4 wins and 1 draw in the previous 5. So they are in a good moment, Brentford.
They're in a good moment, and they're a very good team at home. As we've seen across the season, as we saw before Thomas Frank left and before Keith Andrews came in, it's 7 home victories. They're the 4th best team at home this season, and the best team outside the top 3. You just have to win your home games. So important in this league. Those that don't win home games are the ones that find themselves struggling. Those that do find themselves thinking maybe we could qualify for Europe. And what an achievement it would be for Brentford to be playing European football, considering, as they say themselves, they're a bus stop in Hounslow. And a couple of players have been fantastic this season. I mean, Thiago, you can't discount 16 goals. You just can't, right? That's an incredible record of goals. Lots of pens in there and stuff. Sure, people will discount that, but I think he's been involved in lots of open play goals. He's been winning a lot of the penalties that he's gone on to score as well. It's 5 in his last 2. So you've got to look at him, and you've got to look at Brentford to be able to at least score 1 goal in this game. And defensively too, in this league this season, where it's been more pace and power and physicality than it's been really for 20 years, to have Aya and Collins and 𝐿𝐭𝐴 in your back line, that's physicality right there. You've got to outmuscle that back line, and it's very, very difficult for anybody to be able to do that. That's got on to be a part of this brilliant defensive season that Brentford have had in their home season. In terms of Forest, look, they've not been good, okay? They should not have won at West Ham. I won't bore you again with how much I hated the way Forest won that game. The Somerville goal should have stood and West Ham should have won, and Forest would have deservedly lost that game. But taken in the macro sense as well, awful at Villa, awful at home against Everton. Really good performance. They got up for the Arsenal game last time out, and I expected Arsenal to win that game by 1-0. It was 0-0 in the end. Wasn't too far off our prediction, because Forest are able to lift themselves for a big game. But there's no goals in this team, and that's why they brought a new striker in this week, 6'7" striker from Serie A. I'm not sure he's going to be fit for this game or not, but 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐽 doesn't score goals. Gibbs-White is having a really rough season. The loss of Elanga has been significant. Hudson-Odoi has not done it consistently. They've really not played well since the win over Tottenham, which we thought might be a turning point in the season, and ended up not being. And defensively too, I think Murillo and Milenkovic have had some great moments, but also some poor moments. And Anderson sort of disappeared as well from the guy that was dominating games last season. So look, all results are possible, but for me, you have to go for Brentford on the form they are in at home. 2.07 for that. And then I think you've got to look at some of the wins that Brentford have had this season at home. I'm thinking specifically of the win over Sunderland. I see them winning without conceding and then winning with a few goals as well. So I think it might replicate the Sunderland result of a few weeks ago. Nice group bet of 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0, coming in at 3.75. And look at 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐻, anytime goal scorer and first goal scorer as well. Again, he has scored 5 in his last 2, 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐻. So you've got to bet on him.
Also, David is picking him to score in this game. Brentford to 1-3-1 or 4-1. Well, Brentford to win. Actually, Brentford to win, as simple as that. If you don't get too complicated with both teams to score or 2-0 is good enough, in my opinion. 2.0 is good enough. Again, smart bet going against us. Double chance for Nottingham Forest. X2. And again, they are playing on Thursday. Then Crystal Palace, Chelsea. I was already reading some comments that want to get rid of Rossinior after a couple of games or after watching Chelsea Paphos in the Champions League. And I guess also Chelsea Brentford in the Premier League. Someone already wants to sack Rossinior. The team is not playing well and even struggling against Paphos. We thought it was going to be an easy one, but it was not. And they are in the position 8 in the Champions League. So also they have to win the last game in Napoli to qualify for the top 8. And before they have to go to Selhurst Park in really poor form. This Crystal Palace is 7 Premier League games without a win.
Yeah, Palace are in full meltdown. And I think you've got to take that into account when you look at a game like this. The manager's press conference pre and post Sunderland last week was shocking. He's desperate to be sacked. And if it wasn't for the whole payoff of it all, I think he would have walked out already, Oliver Glasner, because he's clearly had enough of being at Crystal Palace because they have, as he has said, sold the crown jewels. Eze went in the summer. Gay is gone. Mateta could be leaving this window. Aston Villa, Juventus, 1 or 2 others said to be interested in him. And at this point, Oliver Glasner's like, who are you going to get from me? Palace find it hard to attract players. They are not top payers, nowhere near top payers. So it doesn't matter how much money you bring in transfer fees. They can't offer new players coming in the wages they would expect to be at the level that Crystal Palace would like to be, which is consistent top 8, top 6, challenging in Europe, all that sort of stuff. It was a fleeting moment for Crystal Palace, which they capitalised on brilliantly, and we all loved it. I loved it. But do I think Crystal Palace will be a consistent European qualifier? No, I don't. Do I think they'll be in a relegation battle next season? Yeah, I do. Do I think they'll be in the Premier League in 10 years' time from now? No, I think they will go down at some point in the next 10 years in the same bracket as Bournemouth and Brighton and all these other teams that there was just a ceiling for them because they don't pay enough money to players. And the top clubs are going to move further and further away. And unless we put regulation in place, which we're not going to, that'll continue to be the case. So they have been scavenged by the vultures. And Oliver Glasner is not happy with it. But more broadly than that, they haven't been playing well recently. There's been a lack of dynamism about them since the injury to Daniel Munoz. And again, they haven't replaced him. I think last week against Sunderland, they went toe-to-toe against them, but there was no Eze or Sarr. Sarr's injured. He has not been sold, but there's no Sarr to kind of get you over the line in those vital moments. Johnson and 𝐵𝐻𝐻 have been fine, but it is a downgrade from last season because of the balance that the front three had. And then now with no Mark Gay, I don't think a replacement's been brought in as yet. That means it'll be probably Jefferson Lerma in the back line, one assumes. We'll see what they do. But I think there's all sorts of issues there at Crystal Palace, and the unhappiness of the manager is palpable. In terms of Chelsea, the trouble with Liam Rossinier, to go back to your first comment on this, is that he is seen as a Blue-Co stooge. Blue-Co being the owners, and he was working at Strasbourg, and now he comes into Chelsea, and the fans see him as a company man. And the fans want to see their manager as their man. That's just football. And they don't see him that way. And it's going to take Liam Rossinier a lot to overcome that attitude. And all we know of him really right now is that he speaks like David Brent from The Office. And he's got lots of managerial platitudes and stuff. And it's a bit like, oh, okay, all right, we'll see how it goes. So just got to win a lot of games. That's it really for Liam Rossinier. It's no different to anyone else. He's got to win a lot of games and win them well. Good win against Brentford last week. Got to give him credit for that. Paphos, I didn't see that, but, read this morning that they didn't play particularly well, as you mentioned. Not a great deal of change from what Enzo Maresca was doing. He said himself, Rosinia, he's a very similar coach to Enzo Maresca. You might ask why they then made the change. Let's not get into that. But it'll be very, very similar. They'll try and dominate the possession. They will potentially at times look long to Liam Delap, who seems a lot more of a Rosinia player because they knew each other previously from the time together at Hull, I think. So tricky this, because I think both teams could easily find a way to lose. I'll take the Chelsea win at 2.1 only because of the ongoing meltdown at Crystal Palace. And at the moment, their form doesn't suggest they're going to turn it around anytime soon. Struggling to see a Crystal Palace goal as well. Chelsea have been reasonably good defensively in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Certainly against Brentford, they look reasonably solid defensively. Brentford had decent chances, but getting those last-minute blocks in and making saves is actually defending. So doing whatever you can to keep a clean sheet does matter. Chelsea win to 0, 3.75. Again, another tight Premier League game. Chelsea win by exactly 1 goal, 3.75. Close Chelsea win.
Chelsea win and over 1.5 goals. Heisenberg, William, Chelsea plus under 3.5 goals in this game. Palmer, anytime goal scorer. It's been a while, no? Without seeing a goal from Cole Palmer. Indeed. Palace are a big mess. Mateta also wants out. Indeed, Juventus are or were close to get Mateta. Chelsea to win and under 2.5 goals. Here again, Chelsea having a tough trip to Napoli to visit their former friend Antonio Conte, waiting for them there. Next one is Newcastle, Aston Villa. Good game. This one, Newcastle having also a good season in Europe. Now they are in top 8 after smashing PSV on Wednesday. So they are keeping an eye to keep this spot in the Champions League. In the Premier League, though, they couldn't beat Wolverhampton. 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀 missing a lot of chances there. But this is a great game, Tom, with both teams you mentioned in the fight for the top 4. Also, Aston Villa are playing Europa League. Remember, we saw Emery very angry after losing against Everton, a defeat that we didn't see coming. And it's not easy to win in St. James's Park. So I can kind of understand Newcastle to be favorite, although perhaps too favorite with these really low odds.
Yeah, they are too favourite. I think that's a good way of putting it. But I think they'll win the game. So in the end, you've got to find ways to make money out of it from that scenario. Look, I think the issue with Newcastle is clear. It's that 𝗀𝗲𝗏 had a good burst at the start, but he's looking pretty tired now. And maybe he's been found out a little bit, having been sort of come in very quickly at the start of the season. And people look at this 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐴 freak and are like, how do I mark him? What do I do? What's he good at? And we didn't expect him to be good at headers. And it turns out he's very good at headers. And so people kind of struggle with him for a few weeks. And I think people have got him down now. So really good moment for 𝐬𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐴 to come in and add something different to this team. But as we saw against Man City in the Carabao Cup a couple of weeks ago, he's not top quality. He's very good, sure. But we're talking top quality here. When he gets put through on goal, 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, would you bet your house on him scoring? I would not. I don't think 𝗀𝗏 would as well. And I think that's the issue. They replace Isak with 2 players that are nowhere near as good as Alexander Isak. And, you know, as much as Newcastle fans don't want us to talk about that for obvious reasons, that's the issue here. They had a world-class striker, and now they don't. And that's why they're not in the mix for the title, frankly, in the same way that Aston Villa are, because that's what's missing in this team. Beyond that, it's all very solid. 𝐻𝐿 has been great. Midfield looks good after Eddie Howe rotated a lot for a while to get everyone sort of fresh and through games. We're back now to Joelinton, Tonali and Bruno. Bruno has been sensational this season. So consistent, scoring goals, leading the team. He is incredible, Bruno Guimaraes. And he'll need to be in the Champions League next year, right? So Newcastle will need to qualify for it. Otherwise, a lot of teams will be circling on Bruno Guimaraes, who has done all he can at Newcastle. And they either keep moving forward with him, or I think that there'll be a huge bidding war for him. He could play for any team in the world. He's so good. So those are the issues there with Newcastle. But look, at home form has been fantastic, as it always is at St. James's Park. I think the season, it's 7 home wins from 11. That's pretty good. More home wins than Sunderland, who we're talking about as this kind of like, can't beat them at home sort of team. Well, Newcastle have more wins than them. So I think they go into the game feeling pretty confident. In terms of Villa, I think the freight train has stopped from the run they were on before the Arsenal game. They recovered in the victories over Forest in the cup game against Tottenham, but the issues that we knew would catch up have caught up. The sale of Daniel Marlon at this particular moment was weird because Marlon and Watkins have been kind of sharing the striking duties. They've sold Marlon. They haven't signed the replacement, at least at the time of recording, which means that Watkins will be flogged for 90 minutes, which he just can't do at this moment in his career. They've got a lack of options going forward, a lack of options in midfield. And if McGinn and Buendia and Rodgers don't do it, they can't just turn around to someone and say, can you now step in? Because 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐵, for example, has been useless this season. Seemed like a poor signing, has been a poor signing. And now they've lost Kamara to injury. And Nana has been struggling with his fitness in recent times as well. I think he's got a hamstring problem that keeps him out for a month. To have no Nana and Kamara and no backup for Watkins, all sorts of problems there for Villa. That leads me to a Newcastle win. Newcastle win both teams to score is 3.5. I think it's to be broadly similar to a lot of Newcastle home games where they will concede a soft goal. Look for Watkins to score, but in the end, Newcastle come good. And check out Bruno Guimaraes anytime. 8 goals this season. He is the top scorer. If someone's going to do it, it's been him. So let's back it.
Newcastle win or draw, and both teams to score. Heisenberg is telling us double chance for Aston Villa. Shadra, Morgan, anytime goal scorer. Well, Malen already scoring, by the way, for Roma. Great signing indeed for the Italian team. Let's take a look at the smart bet for this game. It's going for corners, under, and then we can see also goals, over 2.5 goals, and both teams to score. Yes, so AI in this case, see goals. And then we have Arsenal, Man United, the great game of the weekend, with Arsenal winning absolutely everything in the Champions League. So they have nothing to play for in the following week, just for the perfect record. Great win at San Siro, and even more important to see Gabriel Jesus now. Perhaps is the number 9 they were looking for this season, but even Gyökeres scored coming from the bench. So good news for them after a couple of draws in the Premier League. And also Man United getting better. But it's true, Tom, we've seen many times, or we've said many times, are they going to turn the corner after this win, after the other win, after that win? We've been 5 years probably saying that, and they never turned that corner. The corner is really far away for Man United. Let's see if they can grab another good result here. In the reverse fixture was 1-0 for Arsenal, by the way.
Yeah, look, they haven't turned the corner, but they were very good last week, and you can't dismiss how good they were. But I do think Man City, they could not have set themselves up better to help Man United last week with the high line and the inexperienced defenders. But look, let's start with Arsenal, who remain consistently solid as ever. They're so difficult to beat, and they never find ways to lose games. And when they don't win, it's almost like a monumental disappointment. Like Forest had to put in gargantuan effort last week to get a draw against Arsenal. And in the end, Arsenal probably should have won that game. If Victor Gyökeres had a turn of pace, they would have won it. And they had their chances with Martinelli basically missing an open goal as well. So in another season, maybe they would have been punished for that. This is not that season so far. The issue with Arsenal is just scoring those goals. And it was always going to be the issue, scoring those goals, which is why they spent so much money on Victor Gyökeres, and he just hasn't done it. He just hasn't done it. Like, the reason Arsenal needed a striker for so many years, we had the conversation so many times, was scoring that goal in games that were going to 0-0. Arteta had made them solid, and they've been solid for a long, long time. But who is going to be the guy that just scores that rubbish tap-in that wins a game like last week against Forest? They thought Gyökeres was that guy. He evidently is not. Maybe 𝗵𝗵 Jesus coming back for a few weeks before inevitably getting injured again will make the difference. I don't know. I do think that Kai Havertz coming back in is going to be more important for Arsenal, because I think he is the Arteta man in that position. A team that are probably not going to have a goal scorer that gets to double figures, but they're going to have a whole bunch of scorers that are going to score between 5 and 8, and that will get them to the title this season, the way things are going. With Man United, great performance last week, as we mentioned, but I do think that if Mazraoui is able to play, got to bring him in for Dalot. Should have been sent off last week at 0-0, which would have changed everything. I wonder if Matheus Cunha comes back in for maybe 𝗀𝗲𝗄 this week, considering 𝗀𝗲𝗄's selection, I think, was specific, considering that that they knew City would play the high line, and Dorgu's pressing from the front made a massive difference in that game. That's going to be quite interesting. But most notably, Michael Carrick's come in and just gone, what's this nonsense we've been doing for a year? Make the midfield make sense. Casemiro mainly with Bruno Fernandes in front makes sense. Wingers on the wings make sense. Fullbacks in the fullback areas make sense. And we saw people just knowing what they were doing last week, and that made a massive difference. So a different sort of test this week, no doubt about it. It's going to be all about United's defensive organisation, which has not been great this season, I think it's fair to say. And I think Arsenal, as they have done in so many games this season, despite 2 0-0s in a row, will find a way to win and win ugly. Arsenal win at 1.63. That's your first bet for today. Arsenal win to 0 had been coming in. The nil's been coming in, but not the win in recent weeks. So I'll go back to what was happening before the 0-0s, and that was Arsenal winning and both teams scoring, because it's happened quite a lot this season, conceding lots of soft goals at the moment right now, Arsenal. That was a great finish against Inter, but again, another moment where they conceded one but went on to win. We've seen that a decent chunk this season. It happened against Portsmouth in the Cup, Chelsea in the Cup. So why not here as well at 3.25? That is worth a punt. Nice little group of 2-1, 3-1 or 4-1, 4.33. And it's an Arsenal game. So what do we bet on? We bet on corners. 5+ corners in each half is double your money. 6+ corners in each half is 6. That's 12 corners, 6 per half. Arsenal push for these. I think that's quite nice, that. I'll take the 5, but I think the 6 might be worth a daring bet.
All right, Arsenal to win and over 2.5 goals. Heisenberg, Martinelli, or 𝐿𝐵𝗵𝗿𝗀 to score at any time. Roy picks Merino to score with a header. Arsenal had a midweek game. This could be an upset. Well, they have a really, really deep squad. The value indeed is 6.5 if you are trusting Man United. If you are going for a draw, someone else here is telling us 1-1. Adam, this could be very likely, is 4.2 if we see a draw here. Arsenal, Man United, great game. And for Monday, we have the last game is Everton, Leeds, another game that could scream draw. Everton, important win against Aston Villa after some bad games, including the one against Wolves or Brentford. And the same for Leeds. They were able to beat Fulham 1-0. I guess, Tom, here we shouldn't expect many goals.
Yeah, you read my script. Absolutely screams draw this game with, look, Everton... there you go. He's got it. We all knew. Everyone knew. The world is going to bet on a draw here. Obviously, it's going to be a draw. I mean, look, Everton have had a decent season in lots of ways, and the move to a new stadium can be difficult for some. They haven't won as many as they would have hoped, but now the injuries are racking up. Jack Grealish is out till April. He may never play for Everton again with a broken foot he picked up last week. I think that... 𝗀𝗌𝗄 coming back from AFCON will make a difference for them, because they've lacked a little bit of quality going forward. They signed this Tyler Dibbling from Southampton, who's done nothing really since moving to the club. Dwight McNeil's a decent player, but done nothing really this season. Offensive, they're struggling. Barry's done well in recent weeks. You've got to give Barry some credit, scoring a couple of goals where it seemed like he'd never quite be Premier League quality for this season. Not bad, considering how poor the start was. Defensively, too, Michael Keane suspended for that hair pull in the game against Wolves. Means they've had to shuffle the back line. Patterson comes back in. He's not going to be in the strongest Everton team. And David Moyes has said, I need some players. We've got to buy some players. And they are struggling to attract them right now. So David Moyes will set out defensively to try and nick a win. This game is going to be pretty unwatchable. And then opens itself up to Leeds United, who are the draw specialists in recent weeks. Some really impressive draws as well, including Liverpool and Man United in this run. Last week was petering out to a draw against Fulham before that late 𝗵𝐸 goal was so crucial for them and got them over the line in that game. I think it's so hard to beat. Both teams will set up to be really, really hard to beat. I'd be amazed if there was more than 6 shots in this game. I'd be absolutely amazed if there was many, if any, goals in this match. Look at the draw, obviously at 3.29. Both teams will play to not get beaten. Teams have got plenty of draws this season. Everton with 5 of them and Leeds with 7 draws. Lots of their recent unbeaten run has been all about draws, not about wins. 0-0 or 1-1's a nice group bet. 1-1 on it only 6. Look at under 2.5 goals. This is not going to be a goal fest. And maybe read a book Monday night and give this one a miss.
Yeah, good tip. Screams goalless draw could be another one. So we have more than last season, plenty of them. Too many games. It's just too many games. The players are tired. They cannot play every 3 days. So we are watching a lot of unwatchable football games. That's why sometimes it's better to open a book or a bottle of wine, even better, Tom, or a beer.
Put your hands together.
Okay, yeah, all together while choosing. Okay, guys, this is it. Let me remind you that, of course, we have available for you our tipster competition, and we have one for the Premier League. So just play there absolutely for free. And since you are all experts and like the Premier League, you can make some money. And check out also Rivals, where you can create your own tipster league with your friends. There you go. There. Tom, safe bet.
Oh, I'm doing it again. Third time in a row. Surely this time it's going to come in. My safe bet is Man City to beat Wolverhampton Wanderers.
And the ACCA?
I've gone with 4 this week because the odds are really good. Man City to beat Wolverhampton Wanderers. Tottenham, second best team away from home in the Premier League this season, to beat Burnley. Arsenal to win at home against Manchester United. And if you put Newcastle in to beat Villa as well, a frankly shocking 7.1.
Wow, a lot of games there for fold ACCA for Tom Rennie. Thank you, Tom. See you next week. Bye-bye, guys. See you.